Today we have some fantastic news for The Mandalorian Chapter 19, Season 3, Episode 3, the next one coming out on Wednesday. The same source who told us the runtime for the last 2 episodes plus Andor Season 1 has now confirmed the next episode is much longer than the first 2, coming in at 56 minutes and 11 seconds in length, 4 minutes short of an hour long. And even better news, this does not include the intro and credits. At the time of this video releasing, we don't know the episode title or what the next episode holds, but it's a long one and that means it's very probable they're going to reintroduce the Imperial Remnant, Moff Gideon in prison facing a war tribunal, Dr. Pershing, and Katee O'Brien's comms officer. So we could have 2 separate storylines, what's going on Coruscant and of course on Mandalore. Another reason I think we're going to Coruscant in the next episode is because of this frame. This still is from the latest trailer called Redemption. I am so excited for what this next episode holds. We're gonna pick up from where we left off in the mines after Bo rescued Din and they saw the Mythosaur. The significance of this legendary beast is gonna shape the rest of Season 3, at least from the standpoint of our heroes. Is Grogu gonna have a connection to it, as he did with other creatures, or as the rumours suggest, is it going to be Bo-Katan who tames it, rises to the occasion, and follows in the footsteps of Mandalore the Great? Now the reason I bring up Grogu is because he has a history of taming and calming creatures, whether it's the Mudhorn or the Rancor. Some fans have argued he might have had a connection to the Purrgil like Ezra does, and so on and so forth. Could he be the one who tames the Mythosaur, therefore permitting a path for him to become Mandalore in the future? And I'm talking about Mandalore as a title, the ruler of the homeworld. There are so many possibilities. Now speaking of the Mythosaur, I did post this on Twitter, but a few weeks ago, the LEGO magazine kind of teased the story we were getting in Chapter 18. Whether it was inadvertent or not, there is a short comic story of Bo-Katan, Grogu and Mando who have to face a giant creature. Not the Mythosaur, but a sea monster nonetheless, and at the time, having heard a few rumours about the plot of this episode, I immediately thought this is foreshadowing, and it was. Now one of the biggest tidbits of the day is that Bespin Bulletin have confirmed the Pirate King Gorian Shard from Chapter 17, as well as some of his pirates, might be in Skeleton Crew. They've heard there is a connection between the 2 shows, and they say it might be deliberate. They were trying to get into the school, which used to be a bar. That could be the school where Jude Law's character, the teacher, works. That's where the kids are. Let's wait and see how it all plays out. So today, my dear friends, we're back to news updates. It's been a little while, and we have a lot to talk about in terms of Star Wars movies. There have been so many interesting tidbits that we really need to cover, but no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into this. Star Wars is officially developing sequel stories after the rise of Skywalker. This was something Kathleen Kennedy teased in Empire magazine a couple of years ago, but now Jon Favreau admits they are in the works. He's not necessarily helming them, but it's something he's heard is going on at Lucasfilm. So let's dive into this. Following the lackluster reception of 2019's The Rise of Skywalker, Lucasfilm has not really done much with the events of the sequel trilogy. They do throw in occasional Easter eggs like in the Andor show with some of the species, not to mention the Anzellans in The Mandalorian, but in terms of stories being set in the era, we don't have much of that outside of the LEGO specials, but as I say, those are not canon. But new comments from Mandoverse writer and producer Jon Favreau suggest Lucasfilm is going to go back to it soon. In talking with Movie TV, and that's movie spelt MOOVY, Favreau claims there is some discussion and exploring going on. It's in the writer's room, it's something Lucasfilm is actively developing. Now, as we know, rumour is that Damon Lindelof is helming the 2025 Star Wars movie, and that movie is reported to be set after 9, even though there's not going to be any Rey or Finn or Poe. They're all new characters, it's a new ensemble cast. It is going to be set in the sequels if the rumours are true. Now, if Jon Favreau knows this, he can't reveal too much at the moment. Here is what he said in his own words. There's definitely a conversation that's going on, and then also what happens after the sequel trilogy, because the sequels only take place over a few years, and it's a big thing on the screen, and it's very eventful, but it's a relatively brief moment in history over the course of the thousands of years that Star Wars takes place, and so what happens after is interesting too, and I know that there's some discussion, exploration going on about what happens after it. It is interesting that Favreau is drawing upon the fact Star Wars does take place over thousands of years. It's not just the Skywalker saga. So while Lucasfilm is kind of obsessed with filling in the blanks, filling in the time between movies like 6 and 7 with the Mandoverse, 3 and 4 with Kenobi and the Andor series, with Rogue One and Solo, I think we're going to see them explore polar opposites across the timeline. The sequels on one end and the High Republic on the other. The Acolyte is just the start. I think they will produce a High Republic movie after that. But with the sequels, I would wager that something is coming down the line. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's the era that's the problem. It's the way stories are handled, are written, the way characters are written and portrayed. It's the stuff that comes with it in the story. So I'm absolutely happy if they want to do more with the sequels. If anything, it might improve our perception of that era, in the same way that what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing will also impact our view on the sequels, because they do want to connect those dots, even if those films are pretty far away from the standpoint of the timeline of The Mandalorian. And at this stage, I'd be happy to see Rey or Finn or Poe or Rose. All of those characters were fine, but they deserve better writing and treatments than what they got. So if they can plan something good for those stories, develop Finn maybe as a Jedi, I'm all for it. Now, last year, Kathleen Kennedy made similar comments to Jon Favreau. She said the following: "We're moving further beyond the existing sequels as we look to our movie space. The sequel era is what we're talking about in terms of where we're going with our movies, and just how far out from that we'll go. That's very much the space we're concentrating on." So there you have it, guys. The president of Lucasfilm confirming they are focusing on the sequels for the films. I do see it as a beacon of hope, to be honest, because fingers crossed they learn from their mistakes that you need to plan a trilogy in advance. But I suspect these films are going to be standalones. Now, in other Star Wars movie news, we have more cancellations. This time, Kevin Feige's movie has been shelved. It was going to be the one in 2027, but now it's no longer in active production. And this goes back to how Lucasfilm need to stop announcing things without a plan of action and direction. They announce various producers, directors, and writers, but with no substance to what those films are going to be. And in the end, due to that famous phrase, creative differences, the movies get cancelled. And Variety also confirm Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron is no longer in active development. We've heard this so many times before, but now it's the nail in the coffin. It's not happening, it's kaput, it's over. We also learn that Taika Waititi wants to star in his own Star Wars movie, but he's still figuring out a story. Now, we do know at Star Wars Celebration they are going to give us an update on the movie side of things, but is Taika's situation very similar to Rian Johnson? It gets announced, every now and then he tells us it's still happening, but it never comes to fruition, and 5 or 6 years down the line, we still don't know. The organisation on the TV show side of things on Disney Plus is really good, but on the cinema side of things, it's nothing short of a disaster. And I'm not trying to be negative, this is something observable, something various outlets have spoken about in the past. In other news, the Acolyte will film or has filmed in the Canary Islands. In a report about Karen McCarthy suing Lucasfilm after wrongly terminating her from the Acolyte, they mention Lucasfilm's intentions of an extended stay in the Canary Islands as part of their deal with the producer. This was going to be an extended shoot, and it's believed it's going to be for the Acolyte. This was also a location used for Solo: A Star Wars Story, and this could be linked to another report by Bespin Bulletin that the Acolyte is filming at Madeira Island in Portugal. They're doing on-location shooting, and just like the Andor show, that's going to give us some amazing visual results. We're going to see a variety of planets and landscapes, always something fantastic in the galaxy far, far away. And so finally, my dear friends, Bo-Katan actress Katee Sackhoff confirms she is not in the Ahsoka show. She could just be playing coy for the press, but her answer does seem genuine. She was saying about the importance of The Mandalorian and her story in that show. The Ahsoka series is something different. Sabine and Ahsoka looking for Ezra and Thrawn. Despite Bo-Katan knowing where Ahsoka is at this time and them having a history, it doesn't seem as though the character reunion is going to happen in the Ahsoka series. Maybe in The Mandalorian Season 3 or Season 4, if Ahsoka does come across Mando once again, but the focus now going forward is the Mythosaur, Bo-Katan wanting the Darksaber and to lead her people once again, and really doesn't have much to do with what Ahsoka's up to. Katee made her comments to Deadline, where she says, "I can't say anything, but as of right now, no, I'm not an Ahsoka." But you know, as Jon Favreau said, the Mandoverse is so expansive. There are going to be other shows, other crossovers. It's not just going to be 3 or 4 seasons of this show and a few spin-offs. There is something bigger they're building up to. So I think a live-action reunion of the two characters is in the cards, but not in the Ahsoka show. That's going to happen further down the line. But what do you guys think? Share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in today's video. If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always.